Hopefully this doesn't become a custom. However, whether you're watching in the VOD or live, please hit that thumbs up. It helps the stream out a lot. For those of you live, I might add another minute. I know I'm late. I apologize. I don't even have that good a reason. We'll talk about that in roughly 3 minutes, unless it's roughly 4 minutes. Enjoy the music of Otis McDonald. Jesus. I'm not late, you're late. Let's keep in tradition and say, SydStream. How's everyone doing? Let me just unplug this. Man, I am, tonight should be a pretty good show. Let me just get rid of the music abruptly, as is tradition, because I don't know how loud it is for you. Well, actually, I do. Enough of that. I'm in a good mood. Thank you very much for being here. Should be a good show. Hello, Frank. Hello, Henry. Hello, Breck. Glad to see the three of you here and chatty already. This doesn't have much to do with anything from your end, but I've added some bells and whistles to the stream. you're definitely going to see some of them tonight. However, most of them are really just things that make my experience of using this cooler. I just started playing with the logic of how the buttons can work. A couple of the things that I do now have a timer on them and shit like that. Yeah, I'm really excited. Another thing that I wanted to announce is that I have taken the time, one could argue wasted. Hello, Darth Shady. I don't think it's entirely wasted because I work in pop culture, but I finally took the time to consume some things that have been very popular. This isn't the first time that this has happened, but I finally watched Squid Game. I spent all of my Saturday watching it, and I did a bit of laundry at the same time. I gotta say, Squid Game is really good. The funny thing is, Squid Game is like this is like the third time that I see a bunch of memes popping into the zeitgeist, and what motivates me to watch the show is the fact that I saw so many memes based on it, and I finally want to understand. And I gotta say, I totally understand why that show is so popular. That show has everything. Holy shit. I'm always amazed when a show can make me care about their characters quickly. But on the flip side of that, there's a lot of murder. Like the premise of Squid Game is that some really indebted people who are like under crippling debt get to play games, and if you lose, you get killed. And so many people, just to give you an idea, over 400 people enter the game and there is one winner. So towards the end, you have seen so many people get shot execution style. It's kind of nuts. But all that being said, it is a really good show. I highly recommend it. Oh, and another thing, I finally got around to watching Free Guy. That, it's not so much for the memes, but I'm glad that I watched it. I just want to give you a warning. I don't know what I'm gonna say about Squid Game when I finally decide to dig deep in it. Actually, let me do a little fact checking here. Just want to see something. I took most of my day off today. Henry caught a cold. That's a shame. Well, I hope you're feeling better. Let me just see here. Okay, so Squid Game was released on September 17th, which is almost a month from now at this point. However, and this, for spoilers, it's really an etiquette thing. I still consider that it's a little too early to openly talk about spoilers, even though I can't really blame you if you haven't seen it at this point. The bottom line is, if you care about spoilers, I'm giving you 2 more weeks to watch the show. It's only 9 hours, not even. So yeah, after 2 weeks, I don't even know what I'm going to say about the show, but I give myself full license to say whatever the fuck I want. And there will probably be mega spoilers, but I'm so glad I watched it. Same goes for Free Guy, although I think Free Guy was released even further out. So, another thing. How can I say this? I remember earlier in a couple weeks ago or months ago or whatever, I was complaining about how I'm behind on my reading because I've been reading so many comics. Over the last couple of weeks, I have suffered from the reverse problem where there is a book that I'm focused on reading. I want to focus as much of my free time that I spend reading on reading this book. It's important to me for many reasons, and as a result, I'm behind on my comic books reading. I might have to make an exception for United States of Captain America. I have the nagging feeling that that thing is going to be wrapping up in a couple weeks. But yeah, I wanted to mention that it's really weird to, especially given that I've spent such a long time being behind on my reading from reading because I'm reading comics to have like the opposite result. For the sake of time, I'm gonna skip this anecdote. It doesn't really matter. I would like to talk about something really quick. I'm just gonna prepare this. This isn't a segment, but I want to talk about it. Good. I actually skipped this last week when the Frances Haugen story broke. I don't have as much to say on that as I thought I would, but that will become clear as we proceed. Okay. Cool. So I want to show you a video which went viral a couple weeks ago. I think literally. No, well, just over a week ago. This video went viral because some Toronto reporter tweeted it with the caption, "What madness is this?" I just want to show you. It's 17 seconds. Just to give you an idea, I quote tweeted it and said based. Let's watch. Whoops, I'm getting ahead of myself there. Let's watch the original video, and we'll break it down a little. So that is pretty cool. Something that I say a lot is that if more people understood proper gun safety, it wouldn't be such a controversial issue. And to see this obviously proficient child displaying such gunplay was really cool. Now this went viral, and Mark here got a lot of hate. But one of the things that struck me is that he was just the video that you just saw. He described this as a child playing with guns, and that is really shocking. I just want to bring your attention to one specific moment right here, roughly. Yeah, okay. So if it wasn't obvious to you, like, I don't know shit about guns, but I watch a lot of Paul Harrell videos. And if the fact that this girl is at least proficient and trained in gun use wasn't obvious to you, I just want to bring your attention to this little moment right here. This is a few seconds that tell a lot, okay? So she fires the last bullet of the gun, and then she checks the chamber to make sure it's clear before tossing it. This little 2 seconds right here tells me that this girl has been drilled in gun safety and wanted, even though the slather thing, the slather thing on the gun was all the way back, which indicates that the clip is empty. She still checked the chamber, which is proper gun safety before tossing the gun. Oops. That's one of the bells and whistles I added to the stream. So the fact that this guy referred to this child as playing with guns is silly. And it turns out that it went viral, and he got a lot of hate to the point where apparently he got death threats. And I don't want to play this video, but he reported death threats to the Toronto police, and I said, your takes on all this are dumb as shit, but yeah, threats are unacceptable. Now, the reason I'm showing this tweet is that this is actually a tip that y'all can use in your conversations in general. Okay, the word "but" is a word that is dicey, especially in online conversation. However, a tip that you should have, and I intellectually know this, but in the heat of the moment, you don't always do it, okay? If you have a positive thing and a negative thing that you want to say, and that you will use the word "but" to link these two ideas, start with the negative first and then say "but" and then the positive. A lot of people do the opposite, including me in the heat of the moment, because it's a reflex. Unfortunately, conversation in general is toxic, and this isn't a habit that gets ingrained in us. However, when I originally wrote this tweet, I originally wrote it as, threats are unacceptable, but your takes on all this are dumb as shit. You see how that feels different? You know, threats are unacceptable, but your takes are dumb as shit, versus your takes are dumb as shit, but yeah, threats are unacceptable. So I just wanted to bring your attention to that, and hopefully the next time you're in a situation where you have a positive and a negative idea that you want to say in the same sentence, that you'll lead with the negative one and say "but" the positive one. Just a little tip, and that is all I wanted to say about that story. Oh, speaking of another story that I want to cover real quick, let me just take a sip of water here. Brad, to answer your question, on whether or not I read comics monthly or wait for the arc to finish, it depends. If the answer to your question is I will read them monthly. However, if I hear of a story underway, I'll like binge up to the point where I'm at and then read monthly for the rest. I really don't mind the wait. Plus, man, there are so many like convenient reading order guides that'll let you, like, if you're interested in all the tie-ins for like crossover events specifically, to see like which ones are being released, which order you should read them in, etc. So, and I don't mind the wait. I have so many comics that I'm reading. So yeah, that's the answer. Speaking of comics, actually, Darth Shady, the circle, square, and triangle that Brad posted are specific references to Squid Game. However, they are clearly they look like PlayStation buttons. So yeah, that is one of the points that are frequently made, and I just realized I'm fucking out of free New York Times articles. So let us go to plan B. So I don't have much to say on this for reasons that are that will be clear in a second. But in the world of comics, Jonathan Kent, Clark Kent's son, is coming out as bisexual, and we see this picture of, him kissing a man. I will say that the reason I don't have much to say on this is because I am done with DC Comics. I have explained this at length in a previous stream. I will link to it below. But to just summarize, there was the Dark Knight's Metal crossover event that I read. No, Dark Knight's Death Metal. I fucking loved that crossover event. I really enjoyed it, and the final battle was fucking epic. I loved it, and to have this story end in yet another DC reboot was too much for me. And I noticed a pattern that DC Comics reboots their fucking multiverse every 5 years. This has been a consistent trend for the last 15 years, and to have it happen at the as the conclusion of a story that I was enjoying so much made me say, "Fuck this! If you're not gonna commit to your own storylines for more than 5 years, neither will I. I'm out of here. I will continue to read The Flash because, of course, I will, but." I'm out for this iteration. I will see you in 5 years when you reboot your universe again. Okay, so this thing happening in the this rebooted universe, I'm just not going to pay attention to it unless he happens to do a cameo in a Flash comic or whatever. So the one thing that I want to point out, though, actually, let me just find. I should have prepared my own tweet here. There it is. This is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a while. I will just give the broad lines here in case I never get around to actually covering it. But this tweet, Gamergaters who don't actually read comics are going to have a field day with this. Now, on the topic of representation, okay, there are two things that are true with this bisexual Jonathan Kent here, this bisexual Superman or Superboy or whatever the fuck, I don't care. It's clearly pandering. It's not a big deal. My hand is out of frame. So those two things are true. It's clearly pandering and it's not a big deal. And if it can help some gay person identify with comics more because they see themselves, there's no harm. It's kind of transparent, but who cares? And the point that I was making, that I was alluding to with this tweet here, is that I suspect, because I can't read anyone's mind, right? But I suspect that the Gamergate types who do a lot of complaining when these kinds of things happen in comics, the kinds of people who made dozens and dozens of videos about Brie Larson when the Captain Marvel movie came out, the Quarterings, the Gamers and Geeks or whatever, channels like that. I suspect that they don't read comics anywhere near what they imply. And an anecdote that illustrates this, and let me find an example here. So the example that illustrates this is when I watched Deadpool 2 a couple years ago. Actually, let me open up another tab here. I need to drive this point home. Okay. So in Deadpool, there's a mutant called Domino, and the thing is, they race bent Domino. Domino is not a black woman in the comics. As a matter of fact, Domino isn't just white. She's like white, like the color white. And just to illustrate, just to give you an idea, the actress who played Domino in the Deadpool movie was so good at her role that I didn't even realize that they had race bent Domino before like a third or half of the movie in, that I realized, holy shit, wait, Domino's black. And again, this doesn't matter. Seriously though, she was so good. I have no trouble believing that she was not a diversity hire and that she was literally the best audition for the role. That's how good she was. However, as curiosity, after watching the Deadpool 2, I did a quick survey of the kind of people that I would expect to complain about them race bending Domino because, you know, it's the SJW woke agenda and they're all that shit, you know. And I went to their channels and searched for like Deadpool 2 reviews and nothing. At least if the Quartering or Sargon of Akkad or who else? A couple other people that I'm not thinking of right now. I definitely checked out those two channels. If the Quartering complained about them race bending Domino at some future point, I didn't hear about it, but I explicitly looked and the movie had been out for a while, which leads me to believe that he doesn't read comics, or at least nowhere near as often as he implies. Just to end on a final meme here, we can see that open in new tab. There's an obvious difference between these two people. It's not just a tiny little thing, you know? I mean, she has a fucking afro. Anyway, I've belabored this point enough. What else do I have? That is it, actually. If Jonathan Kent makes a cameo in The Flash, then maybe I'll comment on it, maybe I won't. One thing that I'll say, though, before wrapping this part up, there are good and bad ways to do representation, okay? One example of a bad way to do it is a diversity hire. That's cringe. I fucking hate that. But the other one, another example of how to poorly do representation is when, let's say you have a gay character and every time they appear in your story in itself has nothing to do with like LGBT stuff. And whenever the character appears, it's kind of like the only contribution that they add to the story is to be gay. That's kind of cringe too. But I have the nagging feeling that they're not going to do this with Jonathan. I have no idea. As I've belabored enough, I will not read it. Maybe when they reboot the universe again in 2026, and that Jonathan Kent is still gay in that rebooted universe, maybe I'll take a look at that then. But for the time being, I'm out. All right. Holy shit, it's already 10:30. And I haven't even talked about the two main segments here. Well, the good news is, on the flip side, where I thought I didn't have that much to say on gay Clark Kent, gay Jonathan Kent, his son. I thought I would have a lot to say on the Frances Haugen Facebook whistleblower thing, and I don't, for reasons that I will explain in a second. Let me just prepare a few tabs here. Oh, yeah. Actually, let me give y'all some music here. Nah, not that one. That one. All right. Just gonna put these in order and then we should be good to go. Okay. Wait, let me just make sure of something. This. Okay. Electro-funk. Hey, Henry, if you like this music, here's the thing. The artist's name is Otis McDonald. He is one of the best musicians in the YouTube audio library. He also does his own music. Let me rephrase that. He does albums that he releases properly, but he also does songs that are exclusively meant to be used royalty free on certain platforms. So some of his songs, like the one you just heard, are only usable on YouTube, and he has different songs that you can only use on Facebook/Instagram, and some of those songs are so good. Unfortunately, I can't find them anywhere else but the Facebook audio library. So it's probably some contractual stuff. I fucking hate IP. It's fucking cringe, but hey. If you're the only person who believes that something is bullshit, you're kind of screwed. So, let us talk about... Actually... If I'm going to plug them, I might as well go all the way to the end. So this is Otis's website. Where is he? You've undoubtedly heard some of his music on YouTube before. One of his stingers is very commonly used. He plays a bunch of different instruments. Man, if you're on Instagram, I would recommend following Otis McDonald on Instagram because he releases these reels of himself playing the different instruments in his track. It's really good. So yeah, end of plug. You can download the YT tracks and use them for your things. Yeah, I do, and I have Dark Shady. It's just, it would be more convenient for me to have them on Spotify, which not all of his stuff is available on Spotify. Although, anyway, just to give you an idea, the H3 podcast, they commissioned him to do the new version of their theme song, and it's really good. So yeah. All right, let's talk about Frances Haugen, the Facebook whistleblower who I would say it's fair to say that she rose to stardom over the course of last week. And I gotta say, watching the discussions around her has been very fascinating to me. Now, there is a cartoonist slash commentator who shall remain nameless, I won't tell you who he is, who has used the metaphor of two movies playing on one screen. And I gotta say, this was the days following last week's stream where I went over her Congress testimony in as much detail as I reasonably could, was a very big demonstration of that, because after seeing that, I started seeing memes trending. Oh, well, not trending, but memes about her appearing in my feed. For example, this one here, which is, it's essentially calling her a Fed, because you posted her face on top of the famous Fed Boy picture that I went over earlier on a couple weeks ago or whatever. Another one here. Imagine being so desperate you plant your own whistleblower to expose yourself for not censoring enough so you can censor more. This last part here, I will elaborate on, okay? There's a lot going on, and I'm sensitive to the point that your opinion on Frances Haugen is going to depend on a lot of factors, or a lot of those factors will play into that, okay? And one of those things, and I wasn't as sensitive to this as I was in the days following last week's stream. If your main exposure to her was her 60 Minutes interview versus her 3.5-hour testimony in front of Congress, your impression of her is going to be very different, okay? I'm going to hit you with a final meme here, which is, how do you do, fellow whistleblowers? Like, the bottom line is, there were some things that I noticed myself last week, which I didn't mention because the downside of watching 3.5 hours of her Congress testimony at 2x caused me to have this like tunnel vision and to focus really on what she was saying during that conversation. And one could argue that I may have missed the forest for the trees, or however that expression works. Now, something that I absolutely noticed myself in real time as I was watching this situation unfold is that she's being treated a lot better than previous whistleblowers. Let's put Project Veritas to the side, okay? For the purposes of this segment, Project Veritas doesn't exist, okay? So let's talk about things like people like Julian Assange or Edward Snowden or I'm drawing a blank. I don't want to dead name this person. Chelsea Manning. Chelsea Manning, Frances Haugen was treated severely differently from these people. Now, a point that I would make is that these people were whistleblowing on the government, so of course they're going to be treated differently by the government. Whereas one can interpret that Frances Haugen is whistleblowing in favor of more government intervention, okay? So on the surface level, it would make sense that she would be treated differently in that sense. However, one thing that I think is completely unfair is to frame her, and I've seen a lot of people say this, that she is calling for more censorship, or that's what this meme is implying right here. That is explicitly false, okay? She was, on one hand, she's calling for government action, but on the other hand, the changes that she wants to see in Facebook, or as far as the Facebook algorithm is concerned, is less algorithmic interpretation, which would, in her testimony, she explicitly said that she would rather see a chronological timeline with a little spam demotion. That's like a direct quote of things that of what she said in Congress. So to say that she is advocating for more censorship is explicitly false. But on the flip side of this, and I mildly alluded to this last week when I said that, yes, this is a very real problem, but I don't trust the government to handle this responsibly. Is Frances Haugen calling for more censorship? No, 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 no. However, will her testimony lead to government action that will lead to censorship? That's quite possible. That's an entirely different question, and it's quite possible. Again, when I said that I didn't trust the government to handle this responsibly last week, part of that was that, like, even though she's there under oath calling for something like a chronological timeline with a bit of spam demotion, whatever Congress actually does as a result of that is a completely different question. And that is a broader view that I didn't have at the forefront of my mind last week when I covered this. So I just want to acknowledge that. And there are a couple other things which I would say, you know, man, there are people on the right calling her like a plant, a shill, a fed, and things like that. And there are varying degrees of credibility to this. However, there is one thing that it's easy to... It's a little sketch. It's a little sketchy. It's a little sus. The fact that Bill Burton here is working with her. I won't read this entire article, but I will link to it below. But let me find the paragraph that I wanted to see here. Wait. Here. So Frances Haugen, the former Facebook employee who has for the past 10 months fed internal documents to a top Wall Street Journal reporter and who revealed her identity in a primetime broadcast on Sunday. And in defense of people calling her a shill, if all you saw was her 60 Minutes interview, you would get a completely different impression of her than if all you saw was her congressional testimony, okay? I'm underlining that again. So, she is working with the political consultant and former Obama administration deputy press secretary Bill Burton and his consulting firm Bryson Gillette. It is unclear when Hogan's relationship with Burton and Bryson Gillette began, how big her communications team is, and whether it includes other political operatives. Again, I'll link to the full article below, but the, yeah, you see, James John said, advising means activating, he's her handler. Like, this isn't exactly a smoking gun. I get why you would think that, but it's really, how can I say this? Given the past behavior of these people, I can understand what would give you that impression. But I will repeat this again. Frances Haugen herself was explicitly not calling for more censorship. If you get that impression, you are ignoring the 3.5 hours of testimony that she had in Congress. She explicitly did not call for that. Now, will that lead to that? Is she part of a grander scheme? Maybe. That I'm totally open to that possibility. But to frame this as her calling for that is simply false. And you know, it's needlessly pointless to insert this tiny little lie that doesn't do much to help your broader point, which is she might be part of this, you know, for lack of a better term, conspiracy to censor right-wing people on Facebook or whatever. But to make the case that she is calling for it is to ignore 3.5 hours of her testimony under oath in front of Congress. And I don't think that's a good way to do it. Yeah. Oh, another thing though, which again, you know, her testimony in front of Congress is one thing, but when you say something might not be a duck, but it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, and this is me again empathizing with people like this. Not only is she consulting with former Obama operative Bill Burton here, but she's going to be, well, she did. This is probably in the past now. To meet with the January 6th committee. I didn't have time to find the testimony or see what was said by her. But if you want, actually, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to link to the ground news summary of all the different sources that are covering this, and you can check that out for yourself. I might do another segment on this next week or not. It depends if I feel I have something relevant to add at that point. So, yeah, the fact that Congress rolled out the red carpet for her and is meeting with her to testify and see, what would you do with Facebook? And also she's meeting with the January 6th committee. I can totally understand how that would be very suspicious to people. So yeah, again, what is Frances calling for versus what will her part in this game lead to, assuming that there is a game? Are two different questions. And I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that, while also just making you aware that you shouldn't be saying that she's calling for more censorship. That really annoys me when people do that. You're needlessly, well, this points to the sad state of affairs of online discourse, okay? Unfortunately, it's a safe bet to think that most people hearing you say that Frances Haugen is calling for more censorship didn't watch her testimony in Congress, maybe saw a couple highlights. I mean, it's 3.5 hours, so I get it. Even at 2x, it's a long time, almost 2 hours. So that is unfortunately a safe bet. However, to people who are actually aware of what she actually said, by saying that she's calling for more censorship, it just kneecaps your own credibility. And I don't think that risk is worth it, especially when you can point out to other very valid things, like the fact that they rolled out the red carpet for her, that she's going to be meeting or has met with the January 6th committee, the fact that she's working with Bryson Gillette, who is run by, what's his name, Bill Burton. These are all valid things that you can say. And regardless of what she's advocating for, what she's doing might lead to more censorship, you know? So that's it. Wait, Sid, you're wrong. I think this, therefore it is fact. Yeah, like honestly, it's really important to be aware of your own biases, because when you look into something for yourself, it's very tempting, especially in the modern age, to end up just reinforcing the thing that you already believed, you know? And when you do your own research, it's very easy to fall into that trap. And what I do personally is, whenever I'm doing my own research, I like to I want to be charitable to sources that say things that I don't want to believe, and I want to be skeptical to sources that say things that I do want to believe. It's not perfect, but it's at least like a tiny little hedge against the phenomena of confirmation bias, you know? What else? I think that's all I'm gonna say about Francis. There was another part that I considered, but I think I made my point. So, thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, you will probably enjoy this video right here. So please click on that to watch the next one. I do these streams every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. I will see you soon. All right. Let me just take another sip of water here. Let me just clear some tabs and prepare. Like, I'm tempted to skip the Dave Chappelle segment and just play Stardew Valley. However, I don't want to have to wait another week, and there's some things that I want to say about it. So we're probably gonna skip Stardew Valley again. Let me just do this here, and we'll just talk about Dave Chappelle. Hopefully, these bullet points, I can get them together and do something a little that makes sense, you know? All right, I'm gonna jump right into it. Then we're gonna wrap it up. I'm sorry, Die Shady. I don't think I played Stardew Valley last week either, but hey, them's the breaks. Man, oh, just before I start, remember when I said I didn't even have a good reason for being late? Not that like the 4 minutes that I was late would have changed much. I was just a little too lax in getting ready for the show. So yeah, I wanted to try something new for the countdown, but it was a little too last minute. So it's really that simple. I just spent a little too much time chilling. Will there be spoilers of the Dave show? Yes and no. Like if you're concerned by that, you might as well play it safe and leave. But I, like, there's a very minor thing. If you've heard chatter about it, you probably have heard the things that I'll say. I don't plan on going into much detail into of his things. It's your choice, but yeah, that's my statement. So I finally got around to watching Dave Chappelle's latest Netflix special, The Closer, and I had heard of it because, and you may have heard of this controversy surrounding transphobic jokes, or at the very best, jokes that are insensitive to trans people. So I wanted to check it out. First of all, it's Dave Chappelle. Second of all, I'm a fan of, checking things. Primary sources are your friend in this era. And I gotta say, first of all, I thought Sticks and Stones was way better than The Closer. I definitely laughed a lot more during Sticks and Stones. I wouldn't say that The Closer is bad. I mean, it's Dave Chappelle. How bad can it be, right? But I didn't think that it was as good. And the funny thing is, in Sticks and Stones, a lot of the same issues that got him into trouble this time around also happened. He had this whole segment on the LGBTQ community, which in this special, he focused more on trans people. But that was one segment in a special that was roughly an hour long. I think he spent about 15 to 20 minutes, roughly, talking about trans stuff. And I gotta say, the question of whether or not Dave Chappelle is transphobic, I can't read his mind. No one can. I would think that the answer to that is no, that he's not transphobic. I think the core of it is he's not educated enough on trans issues to talk about this shit responsibly in public, which is what gets him into trouble. Now, that might be his intention. And if so, hey, mission accomplished, buddy. However, there were some things that he said that are wrong. And if someone is sensitive to this stuff, I could totally see how they would say that he's like causing harm or whatever. So before I get into that, I'm going to talk in general terms and then drill down into the more specific stuff. Okay. So something that you have to be mindful of, or at least it's helpful to be mindful of this. A joke could have a certain topic, but not necessarily. How can I say this? Let's take physically handicapped people. Okay, someone in a wheelchair. You can have a joke on the topic of physically handicapped people, but the butt of that joke isn't necessarily the handicapped people. So that is something that is very important to keep in mind. Just because a joke has a handicapped person in it, sometimes the butt of the joke is the comedian. I remember, oh boy. Just as an example, the first time I saw Andrew Schultz perform at the Just for Laughs festival in Montreal, I had never heard of him before. At some point, he went into Michael Jackson's rape allegations. He's not here to defend himself, okay? I'm not gonna play defense for him. I'm calling them allegations just as habit because, due process is important. But he's dead. I don't give a fuck. And I'm sorry to his victims and all that shit. But the point is, Andrew Schultz was talking about the rape victims, and he got me to laugh at the victims, but really the butt of the joke was himself. So the premise of the joke was that, how can I say this? If I met my childhood idol, I would be really happy to have sex with them, essentially. So on the surface, that joke is laughing at the victims, but really the butt of the joke is the comedian saying that joke. And I'm not saying that Dave Chappelle did this in his special. I'm just using this as an example of how the topic of a joke and the butt of the joke is not the same thing. Not necessarily anyway. Because sometimes I will make a joke about, not me, but sometimes someone, a comedian will make a joke about a handicapped person, and the joke is that they're handicapped. I don't think that's cool. However, it leads into another a topic that comes up a lot in these conversations, which is the concept of punching up versus punching down. It is with heavy heart that I inform you that a joke can punch down and still be funny. Those are two independent things. So to add another flavor of nuance to what the example that I just gave, let's choose me as a hypothetical. So I could make a joke about a handicapped person, and the joke is that they're handicapped, and the joke could be funny. Now, would I be punching down in such a joke? Absolutely. Is it cool that I said that joke? No, probably not. However, as long as you're not, how can I say this? Let's just stick with the example of handicapped people here. As long as you're not so emotionally invested in the plight of handicapped people that you cannot separate the fact that I'm punching down from what the actual joke is, it is possible to laugh at that. I don't know how clear I'm being, but hopefully by the time this segment ends, you'll have a better idea of where I'm coming from. So one thing that I want to point out though, and this also ties into what I was saying earlier about how Chappelle isn't educated enough on these things to talk about it in public without getting in a bunch of trouble, unless that's his intention, is in comedy, there is a term called hack, and I use this term a lot. I wish more people understood it. Let me just read the Wikipedia on it, the beginning of it. Hack is a term used primarily in stand-up comedy, but also sketch comedy, improv, blah, 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 to refer to a joke or premise for a joke that is considered obvious, has been frequently used by comedians in the past, and or is blatantly copied from its original author. So hack can mean multiple things. And what I was alluding to in my handicap joke example is that if the butt of my joke is, if the punchline is, haha, you're in a wheelchair, that would be hack. And hack isn't funny. Okay. So in this theoretical metaphor where I'm making fun of a handicapped person about them being handicapped, that's the joke. And that it somehow ends up funny. It is, as a result of not being hack, if I could find a way to be clever about it, even though it's definitely punching down, okay, let's acknowledge that yet again. If I avoid the cliches and the obvious things, it is possible for that joke to be funny. And unfortunately, and I say this as someone who is involved in the comedy community, I might get in trouble for even saying this stuff. But one thing that I want to acknowledge is that if you've ever attended an open mic, it is insane how many hack comedians will show up at an open mic and use hack jokes with obvious premises, and they'll try to be edgy and make these jokes about controversial topics to get a rise out of people, just to cover for the fact that they're not funny. Okay, Dave Chappelle is not an example of this. Okay. Dave Chappelle got me to laugh at a fucking rape joke. I never thought that this was possible. I never would have imagined in my wildest dreams that someone would get me to laugh at a rape joke. And Dave Chappelle pulled it off. Now, the reason I'm saying this is in the exploration, like if you want to find a joke about a topic that is not hack, that doesn't have an obvious premise, is it worth the exploration to get Sid Rock to laugh at a rape joke? I would argue no. However, I'm as close to a free speech absolutist as you will find. And especially for comedy, I think that although the problem with edgy humor is that the exploration can lead to a lot of needless pain. If someone in your audience like is personally affected by this, and the end result might not even be worth it. However, I still support your right to do it. Okay. Where else am I going with this? Oh, just before I move on the subject of hack comedy, If you ever have the presence of mind to realize that the joke that you just laughed at has an obvious premise that has been done a million times before, and yet you're still laughing, that might be a clue that you just don't like the subject of this of the joke. An example of this is Joe Biden. If you want to make fun of Joe Biden, ending a sentence with "you know the thing," that's hack. Another example is "come on, man." Although it's funny to say that word, but let's be honest. If you want to make fun of Joe Biden, aka Brandon, to end a sentence with "come on, man" is hack. And if you laugh at that, it's probably because you just don't like Biden. It might be. I can't read your mind. So I just wanted to move on to that. Oh, and I also want to remind you of a verbal tool that you can use if you're ever in the presence of someone who's saying these jokes. If you're wondering whether or not the person is actually being a bigot versus not, versus just saying an edgy joke because they like that kind of humor, they have a dark sense of humor, you're not laughing anyway. So you might as well say, what's the joke? It's really that simple. And if, I don't know, let's take black people. Let's say someone made a joke about black people being drug dealers or whatever, and you ask them, what's the joke? An example of something a non-bigot might say is that, oh, I'm laughing at myself because so many racists make jokes about black people being drug dealers, for instance. If someone actually was a racist and made that joke, and you ask them what's the joke is, most racists are smart enough to not admit it in public, and the fact that they will dodge and weave and wiggle and squirm and not bite the bullet and say, well, it's a joke, it's a joke, that kind of thing, that might be the signs that that joke came from someone who's actually a bigot, or at least in that sense. So coming back to Dave Chappelle, like specifically the segment that he got in trouble for was when he was talking about J.K. Rowling and her cancellation, and the viral quote that is that gets knocked around the internet everywhere is "I'm on Team TERF," because J.K. Rowling gets called a TERF a lot. I would argue she probably is, but J.K. Rowling lore isn't fresh enough in my mind, okay? This is a Dave Chappelle segment. One of the things that he clearly doesn't understand what a TERF is, because in the context of the in the context of that segment, I don't think he meant that he is excluding trans people. I think he was making transmedicalist stuff, like confusing sex and gender, and the fact that he called himself a TERF, I don't think that it's something that he would have went with had he understood that nuance. I don't think so. And again, I can't read his mind, but just to illustrate how poor his understanding of these issues are, how poor his understandings of these issues is. Another viral quote is when he said that gender is a fact. Is gender a fact? It depends. Are social constructs a fact? Is math a fact? Maybe not, depends on your point of view. But when he wanted to illustrate that point, he demonstrated how confused he is on this. These two fingers are representing sex and gender. He said everyone in this room passed through the legs of a woman. All he had to do was say female, and he would have been good. Trans women are women, but trans women are male. I don't think anyone would argue with this. And reverse for trans dudes. The most hyper woke SJW with pronouns in their bio would not dispute that trans women have XY chromosomes. Their argument is that it doesn't matter, and that since gender is socially constructed, they're women. That's kind of the point of this. But in Dave's defense, I have seen hyperwoke SJWs with pronouns in their bio slip up and accidentally say transphobic things because they were confusing man woman with male female. So given our speech habits, it is very easy to slip up in just the right time where you accidentally say, you know, everyone was born from a woman, when the actual true statement is everyone is born from a female. And that's just an illustration of how poor Chappelle's education on these issues is, which explains why he needlessly gets into trouble. Again, if you want to say gender is a fact, I think what he meant to say is that biological sex is a fact, and that everyone in this room passed through the legs of a female. All he had to do was say that, and people probably would have been mad at him anyway. But before I wrap this up, I just want to acknowledge something that I haven't seen a lot of people mention this, but in his when he was wrapping up that part of his show, I won't talk much about his trans friend. I don't think I can add much to that conversation, but when he was wrapping up his trans segment in the show, one thing that he said was that that's it for me. I won't make jokes about you guys anymore until I can be sure that we're all laughing together. This is an explicit olive branch that he is offering the LGBT community. Now, in context, this could probably seem very hollow if he's offering this olive branch after, you know, talking shit and saying a bunch of turfy transphobic shit for 15 minutes. But he did say that. That was one of the things that he wrapped up the segment with before going back to his trans friend who unfortunately committed suicide. And yeah, I just want to underline that, because if you want to detect what's in someone's heart, which you can't, the two best ways that you can go about it is to go with consistent patterns of behavior or watching for red flags. I haven't said this in a long time, but I've said this several times in the history of this channel. And I would say that up to this point, Chappelle has had a consistent pattern of behavior of making edgy jokes. And would these jokes cause harm? I would rather, I'd rather err on the side of freedom to say these things. I can understand how, speaking of consistent patterns of behavior, I can see how someone who actually is a bigot and who really does hate trans people and who really does think that trans women are mentally ill men would be entertained by this, but for the wrong reasons. And the other thing to look out for, and I'm stepping away from Dave Chappelle for a bit, it's that, let's come back to my hypothetical handicapped joke. speaking of consistent patterns of behavior, if I consistently use edgy humor, that's one thing. But let's say that 50% of all the jokes that I say are about handicapped people. That might be a clue that maybe I do have some kind of prejudice against them, you know? Yeah, I can think of people that I've met in the comedy community who would consistently make jokes about a group of people. I'd rather not elaborate, but it was wild to me. I can't remember ever seeing this person have an opportunity to make fun of this group of people and not do it. And it was to the point where that person's humor was predictable to me and I wouldn't laugh, not because I'm offended, but because it's hack at this point. If I can see the joke coming a mile away, it's hack. And if the reason I can see this joke coming a mile away is because you always make jokes about handicapped people, then that might speak to what's in your heart. You know, I can't know for sure, but as far as whether or not Dave is a transphobe, I would argue based on the evidence, no. He's just ill-educated on these issues, and I hope he keeps up on his promise to not talk about these things until he can be sure that we're all laughing together. I really hope he does, but time will tell. This is going to be, as he said, his last special for a while, and we'll see what happens. So thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, you will enjoy this one here, so click on the card right here to watch it. Thank you so much. I will see you soon. Hey. There was some slippery, rocky patches in there, but I think I made good. I will not. I'm really glad that like the Dave Chappelle stuff was it was timely enough where I knew I had to cover it tonight, but it's not timely enough where I feel I need to edit it down tonight and release it at like 2 a.m. Tomorrow morning or whatever. So I'm glad. Hopefully you enjoyed the show too. Y'all got to see a few of the new bells and whistles that I added. Hey Brad, if you ever want to see me play Stardew Valley for 2 hours, someday the Twitch channel, holy shit, it was right there. Someday the Twitch channel that that you see in that lower third will come to fruition. And for now, my intention on Twitch is to play games and to just be a gaming channel. Actually, I'll remind you, if you are watching this and you have a Twitch account, please follow me on Twitch. Part of the reason that is stalling this is the fact that I don't have time, and if more people followed me there, that I would take that as a sign of encouragement. I'm mentally prepared to play Stardew Valley in front of 0 people on Twitch when I come around to doing that. But yeah, and no, I will not do hot tub streams or ear licking. You know what? You can't really top hot tub streams and ear licking. I will say Amaranth, the most famous, for lack of a better term, booby streamer, e-girl. She has honed her skill of ear licking, I'll say that. I will leave the rest of that to your imagination. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you soon.